Maplewood Estates looked like a postcard. Every lawn was trimmed at a perfect 2.5 inches. Flower beds bloomed in neat rows of HOA-approved color schemes, and even the trash bins had to be placed at a 45-degree angle to the curb on collection day. The air smelled of lavender, fresh mulch, and quiet judgment. To outsiders, it was a sanctuary, but the residents knew better. Maplewood was a bubble built on rules and fear of breaking them. The Thompsons had only lived there for 6 months. They were quiet people. Sarah worked from home as a freelance editor. Jason taught music at the local elementary school. Their 8-year-old son, Ethan, had autism, nonverbal, gentle, and happiest when playing alone with his toy trucks or drawing chalk pictures on the sidewalk. He loved the morning sun. It meant quiet time, when the world hadn't fully awakened yet. And so, that Saturday morning, just after 8 a.m., Ethan sat cross-legged on the smooth sidewalk, drawing big blue swirls with chalk. His small plastic dump truck rested beside him, wheels smudged with colored dust. His hums were soft and rhythmic, a melody only he understood. From their porch, Sarah watched him, a mug of coffee in her hand, the security camera blinking silently above the garage door. She smiled. Moments like these, calm, safe, pure, were rare and precious. But the peace didn't last long. From across the street, a figure appeared, short, sharp, and stiff as a ruler. Karen Whitmore, the self-appointed HOA watchdog, clipboard clutched in one hand, dog leash in the other, though the tiny Pomeranian at her feet barely moved. Karen's eyes narrowed behind oversized sunglasses as she zeroed in on Ethan like a predator. Sarah's stomach turned. She stood up. Karen hadn't spoken to them since the mailbox incident 2 months ago, when she accused Jason of painting their postbox a shade too off-white. But the way she now marched across the street, unblinking, clipboard swinging like a weapon, sent an electric jolt of dread through Sarah's spine. "Ethan," Sarah called softly, walking off the porch. "Come here, sweetheart." But Karen was faster. She stalked just feet from the boy, her shadow swallowing the sunbeam he was basking in. Her voice cracked like a whip. "This is vandalism. This is not allowed." Ethan didn't look up. He kept drawing, his hums growing just slightly louder. The blue chalk swirled outward. Karen took a step closer, her voice rising. "Hello, I'm talking to you." Still no eye contact. Ethan began to rock, gently, nervously. His fingers tightened around the chalk. Sarah was nearly there now. "Karen, please, he's not bothering anyone." But Karen wasn't listening. She reached down, and then, without hesitation, ripped the chalk from Ethan's hand. The chalk snapped in Karen's hand like a tiny bone, breaking in half under the force of her grip. Ethan flinched hard, his entire body jerking as if someone had struck him. His eyes widened, not in fear, but in confusion. To him, the world didn't work in the same way it did for others. He didn't understand sudden loud voices, sharp movements, or strangers yanking things from his hands. The blue chalk dust smeared on Karen's fingers like war paint. She looked down at him with thinly veiled disgust. "You've been told before, no marking up HOA property. Sidewalks belong to the community." Sarah was only a few steps away now, but those seconds stretched like a slow-motion nightmare. She shouted again, voice trembling, "Karen, back away from my son." Karen didn't flinch. If anything, she grew bolder. "Maybe if you people taught him manners," she spat, "we wouldn't be dealing with this mess every week." Then, the shove. It wasn't a hard push, but Ethan was off balance, seated on the sidewalk, one hand reaching for his dump truck. The sudden jolt knocked him sideways. He tipped, then fell back, palms scraping the pavement. The toy truck rolled a few feet away, silent witness to what had just happened. Ethan's hums stopped. Completely. A high-pitched, breathy sound escaped his lips. Part gasp, part panic. His small hands flew up to cover his ears. His legs curled in. He rocked faster now, harder, his body screaming a language the world rarely bothered to learn. Sarah dropped her coffee mug. It shattered on the driveway like her nerves. She sprinted to Ethan and dropped to her knees, scooping him up with shaking arms, shielding him like he was under gunfire. Her voice cracked as she tried to calm him. Soft shushes, kisses to the temple, whispers of safety he could barely hear. Karen stood over them, smug, unbothered. "I'll be filing an incident report," she snapped. "Your child's a public disturbance, and don't think your little pity act is going to get you special treatment." That's when she noticed them. 3 neighbors, all watching. One holding a phone, camera clearly recording. Another, young woman in a hoodie, was dialing someone with fast fingers. And the third, a man across the street, just shook his head slowly, jaw clenched, eyes filled with quiet fury. Karen's face stiffened. Her hand twitched toward her sunglasses. "Just doing my duty," she muttered. "Just enforcing rules." She turned and stormed off. Chalk dust still smeared across her palm like guilt that wouldn't wash off. Sarah held Ethan tighter, her heart pounding like a drum. She whispered, "You're okay. Mommy's got you. You're safe." But her eyes drifted up to the tiny red light on the garage security camera, blinking steadily. And for the first time that day, she smiled. Karen Whitmore stormed back to her beige brick house, heels stabbing the concrete with militant precision. Her Pomeranian barked once, startled by the tension vibrating off its owner. But Karen didn't notice. Her mind was spinning, lips tight, eyes darting behind her tinted sunglasses. She slammed the door behind her. Inside, the carefully curated interior, cream walls, crystal figurines, and perfectly centered live, laugh, love signs suddenly felt too loud. Her breath was shallow. Her fingers trembled as she opened her HOA group chat on her phone. "Karen W., board member. Just a heads up. I had to intervene again with that Thompson kid defacing the sidewalk. Parents nowhere in sight. Took appropriate action." She stared at the screen, then added, "I'm considering an official complaint. If we let these people keep bending the rules, this neighborhood is going to go downhill fast." She hit send and leaned back, exhaling slowly. Damage control. Frame the narrative. Make herself the hero. But she didn't know that while she typed, the video was already out there. Across the street, Sarah stood in the living room, arms wrapped around Ethan, rocking him gently on the couch. He'd calmed some, though his eyes still blinked in wide, rapid intervals. His soft hums returned, nervous but steady. Jason, freshly home from a weekend rehearsal, watched the footage from the garage camera, fists clenched at his sides. Each second of the video burned into him, Karen towering over Ethan, the slap of her hand taking the chalk, the shove, the fall. It wasn't just cruelty, it was control. "Unbelievable," he said, teeth gritted. She assaulted him. On camera. Sarah's eyes burned, but she was focused. Cold. Calm. "Then we press charges," she whispered. "No more hiding. No more letting her scare people into silence." She uploaded the footage. No edits. No captions. Just truth. File name: HOA member assaults autistic child. Maplewood Estates security footage. Posted to local Facebook group. Neighborhood watch chat. Reddits / public freakout. And finally, to her own page with one caption: "This is my 8-year-old son. This happened this morning." Back in Karen's house, her phone pinged once. Then again. And again. Notifications flooding in like a rising tide. She clicked the first one. And froze. Her face, on screen. Her voice. Her actions. Unfiltered. Indisputable. The title hit her like a brick. HOA Karen attacks autistic child. "No," she muttered. "No, no, no." She backed away from the screen like it was on fire. She dropped her phone. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. She peeked through the peephole. It wasn't the police. Yet. It was Marcia, her closest ally on the HOA board, standing there with a strained smile and folded arms. Karen opened the door. "We need to talk," Marcia said coldly, "before this explodes." But it already had. Karen shut the door behind Marcia and locked it, both deadbolts. Her smile was tense, her nails biting into her palms. Inside, the air had turned stale. Not even the citrus-scented candles he lit could cover the burning stench of fear. Marcia didn't sit. She stood in the center of the living room, arms crossed like she was delivering a verdict. "That video," she said, her voice flat, "is everywhere." Karen paced. "It's being taken out of context. You didn't see what that child was doing, scribbling all over HOA property. I was just enforcing the guidelines." Marcia raised an eyebrow. "By shoving a child? One who can't even speak? Karen, it's not just viral, it's damning." Karen stopped pacing. Her eyes flared. "You're siding with them." "I'm siding with reality," Marcia snapped. "I've known you for years, but this is different. You need to lay low. Say nothing. Don't go online. Don't talk to reporters. And for God's sake, don't go near the Thompsons." Karen scoffed. "I'm being crucified for protecting neighborhood standards." "No," Marcia said. "You're being exposed." Outside, Maplewood wasn't so quiet anymore. Groups of neighbors were out early, unusual for a Sunday. They weren't trimming hedges or watering lawns. They were watching, talking, whispering in clusters at driveways, phones in hand, glancing toward Karen's house with narrowed eyes. At the end of the cul-de-sac, Jason stood beside his wife, holding Ethan's hand. The boy wore noise-canceling headphones, his eyes fixed on the ground, the stress of yesterday still clinging to his small frame. But they weren't hiding anymore. "Is that her?" someone whispered as they passed. Sarah didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because right then, another neighbor, Mrs. Langford, who usually kept to herself, crossed the street. Her gait was careful, purposeful. She held out a flash drive. "I thought you should have this," she said to Sarah. "My doorbell cam caught it too. A different angle." Sarah blinked. "You recorded it." "I didn't realize what I had until this morning," the older woman said, her voice shaking. I thought people like her would always get away with it. Not this time." Sarah clutched the flash drive like a relic. Another piece of truth. Back at Karen's, the notifications hadn't stopped. Her inbox was flooded with angry messages, interview requests, and worse. A petition to remove her from the HOA board had already hit 500 signatures. Her breathing grew ragged. Her phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. She answered without thinking. A deep voice on the other end said calmly, "Ms. Whitmore, this is Officer Hughes from Maplewood PD. We need to speak with you regarding an incident on your street yesterday morning. We'll be by shortly." Karen's heart stopped. It was happening. The knock at the door wasn't loud, but it was final. Karen froze mid-step in her kitchen, a half-poured glass of wine trembling in her hand. Her gaze flicked to the front window where a black and white cruiser sat quietly at the curb, its engine humming. Her phone was still on speaker from the call minutes earlier. The officer's voice replayed in her head like a ticking clock. "We'll be by shortly." Now, they were here. Karen smoothed her blouse with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, then slowly made her way to the door. She opened it just wide enough to peer out. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female. No handcuffs, no aggression. Yet. "Ms. Whitmore," the male officer asked, tone professional but cool. "We'd like to ask a few questions about an altercation yesterday morning involving a minor." "Altercation," she said, trying to feign confusion. "You mean that child who was drawing all over the sidewalk again?" "I was enforcing community rules." The female officer raised a brow. "Is that what you believe you were doing in this video?" She held up a tablet. Karen's face. Mid-shove. Frame frozen. Caught forever. Karen's lips parted, but no words came. Ms. Whitmore, the male officer continued, "You're not under arrest at this time, but we strongly recommend you accompany us to the station for a formal statement." Karen hesitated. Her wine glass was still on the counter, sweating. Her living room felt suddenly far too small. She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. She didn't know that in the few minutes it took her to get to the station, the internet had already decided her fate. Online, the video had gone nuclear. News outlets picked it up. HOA Karen assaults autistic boy in broad daylight, blaring across national headlines. Activists retweeted it. Autism advocacy groups released statements. Local politicians called for an investigation. And then came the real twist. A Reddit comment on the viral video thread. Short. Chilling. "I recognize her. She used to work at my middle school." There was an incident. Within hours, internet sleuths found it. An old court record. Suppressed. Sealed. But not invisible. Karen Whitmore, former school security officer, accused of using excessive force on a special needs student in 2014. Case settled out of court. Confidential terms. She'd resigned quietly. No charges filed. Until now, no one had connected the dots. But the dots were lining up fast. And this time, the world was watching. Back at the Thompson home, Sarah sat beside Jason at their kitchen table, laptop open, notifications pinging nonstop. Jason scrolled through comment after comment, some supportive, some horrifying. "I can't believe how fast this is spreading," he muttered. Sarah didn't look away from the screen. She just whispered, "We're not letting her walk away from this again. Not this time." She clicked send on an email to her lawyer. Attached, every clip, every angle, every tear. Karen sat under the fluorescent lights of the Maplewood Police Department, arms crossed, jaw clenched. The interrogation room smelled like paper, old coffee, and something colder, judgment. She wasn't under arrest. Not yet, but the presence of a camera in the corner and the quiet, measured tone of Detective Hughes made it feel like a cage anyway. "Ms. Whitmore," he said, folding his hands on the table, "you've stated that you were defending HOA standards, but multiple video angles suggest otherwise." "I didn't hurt him," Karen snapped. "He wasn't listening. He was making a mess. He was drawing chalk patterns on the sidewalk." The detective replied, not blinking. "And you forcibly took his property and made physical contact, resulting in a fall." Karen's face twitched. "He didn't even cry. Because he's autistic, Ms. Whitmore. He doesn't react the way most children do. You didn't just assault a child. You terrified someone who sees the world differently." Silence settled like ash. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 raps on the door. Another officer entered, handed the detective a folder. Hughes opened it. His brow arched. "Ms. Whitmore, are you aware your past employment file at Roosevelt Middle School has resurfaced?" Karen's face paled. 2014. Excessive force against a student in the special needs program. A sealed settlement. The same pattern. Different child. Karen's voice dropped to a whisper. "That case was dismissed." "Not dismissed," Hughes said evenly. "Buried, but not anymore. People are asking questions, including the DA." Across town, the neighborhood had flipped. Karen's once pristine front lawn now sat silent and empty. Her beloved Pomeranian, once her constant companion, had been taken in by her sister after hateful notes started appearing on her door. Trash bins accidentally tipped over. Mail missing. Eggshells found on her car windshield. She wasn't the enforcer now. She was the target. And on every local TV screen, the story kept rolling. HOA board member under investigation after viral video shows altercation with autistic boy. New details surface on Karen Whitmore's controversial past. Parents demand charges as public support swells for the Thompson family. Jason couldn't stop watching it unfold. His hands trembled every time they interviewed another autism advocate, each one echoing the same truth. This wasn't just about chalk. This was about dignity, humanity, respect. Sarah remained calmer, but sharper. Every hour brought another call. News outlets, attorneys. A crowdfunding page launched by a stranger had already passed $30,000 in donations for Ethan's therapy and legal fees. But the twist came that evening. A breaking news alert. Red banner. Bold headline. Karen Whitmore formally charged with assault on minor with disability. Warrant issued. Jason read the words out loud. Slowly. Disbelieving. Sarah exhaled. Finally, 6:42 a.m. A silence hung over Maplewood Estates, thick with anticipation. The sun was barely peeking over the rooftops, casting long shadows across the cul-de-sac. But inside the Whitmore residence, chaos was already unfolding. Karen stared out her window, jaw clenched, clutching her HOA badge like it still meant something. The TV blared behind her, news anchors dissecting her face, her voice, her past, like vultures circling a wounded animal. Her phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Her lawyer, probably to tell her to turn herself in before the optics got worse. But Karen wasn't listening anymore. She didn't see herself as a criminal. She was the victim. The HOA had turned on her. Her neighbors abandoned her. The internet betrayed her. All for a moment. Just 1 second of misunderstood discipline. But when she saw the two cruisers pulling into her driveway, reality snapped like ice beneath her feet. Officer Hughes stepped out first, followed by a second officer in plain clothes. Calm, controlled, but determined. They didn't bang on the door. Just a firm knock, 3 times. Karen didn't answer. Instead, she fled. Back hallway, laundry room, rear door. She wasn't running from guilt. She was running from the shame. But the backyard gate was locked. And when she turned, breath ragged, heart pounding, Officer Brenner was already standing there. "Ms. Whitmore," she said gently, "don't make this harder than it already is." Karen's fingers twitched. Her eyes darted toward the garden shed. But she stopped. She dropped the keys in the grass and raised her hands, slowly. "Everyone's against me," she whispered. "No," Officer Brenner said, cuffing her wrists carefully. "We're just standing up for someone who didn't have a voice." The mugshot went viral in minutes. Karen Whitmore, once the queen of HOA rules and order, now stared blankly at the camera, makeup smudged, pride cracked down the middle. Her name trended for the wrong reasons. Her HOA seat was revoked within the hour. Her past reinvestigated. Her house listed online by nightfall. And across town, in a cozy 2-story home, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, quietly coloring. This time, no one snatched the crayons from his hand. Sarah scrolled through the headlines, heart pounding with something close to closure. But not quite. There was still one more day to face. The court hearing. As the date was set, reporters swarmed the courthouse. Protesters lined the sidewalks, some holding signs that read "Justice for Ethan," others silently standing with puzzle piece pins on their shirts. Sarah stood behind Ethan, one hand on his shoulder, the other holding Jason's. Karen was walked in, escorted and tight-lipped, flanked by her lawyer. But when her eyes met Sarah's across the room, something shifted. Karen smirked. Not regret. Not fear. A challenge. The courtroom was packed. A sea of tension hung in the air like storm clouds before a lightning strike. Camera crews waited outside, their vans humming. Inside, the gallery was standing room only. Neighbors, reporters, advocates, strangers who'd driven in from 3 towns over just to see it end. Karen Whitmore sat at the defendant's table in a pale gray blazer, trying to look put together. Her expression was calm, but her fingers trembled against her lap. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear. She nodded, but her eyes never left Sarah Thompson, who sat just a few feet away, unwavering, a quiet force of maternal fire. Ethan, wearing headphones and a blue hoodie, sat nestled beside his father. He was coloring again, on a small notepad. A single yellow chalk stick sat in his pocket. The prosecution delivered a scathing case. Footage from 3 angles played in the courtroom, each one a nail in Karen's defense. The jury flinched at the sound of Ethan's soft whimper when he hit the pavement. Expert witnesses explained how autistic children process fear differently, how touch, unpredictability, and aggression could be devastating. She didn't enforce rules, the prosecutor said in closing. She used power on a child who couldn't even say stop. Karen's defense tried to spin it, said she didn't know he was autistic, that it was a misunderstanding, that she felt threatened by aggressive behavior. The courtroom went still. Then Jason stood, testifying last. "My son isn't aggressive," he said, voice steady. He was drawing a son. "It's the only thing that makes him feel calm when the world gets too loud." The judge returned after 2 hours of deliberation. Ethan was in the hallway by then, sitting with his mom. But Jason stood inside, fists tight, barely breathing. The clerk read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Assault of a minor with enhancement due to disability. Gasps, a few cheers. One person cried. Karen didn't move, not until the judge handed down the sentence. 6 months jail time, 2 years probation, mandatory counseling, permanent ban from serving on any board governing public or residential matters. Karen turned to look at Sarah as if to say something, defiance still in her eyes. But the words never came. Because just then, Ethan walked back into the room. He walked right past her. He knelt by the floor near his mother, pulled a piece of chalk from his pocket, and began to draw a small yellow circle on the tile. A sun. The same one he was drawing the day Karen tried to erase him. This time, no one stopped him. Outside, the press swarmed for interviews. Reporters begged for statements. But Sarah simply said, "This wasn't about vengeance. It was about recognition. My son matters. His voice matters, even when it's silent." And as Ethan looked up, the chalk dust on his fingers, the crowd around them quieted. Justice wasn't loud. It was clear.